Hello, I'm Kathy Jameson, the Proposition Lady, and I'm here to help you understand the state propositions on your 2024 California election ballot. Today I'm going to talk about Prop 4, which authorizes the purchase of $10 billion in bonds for climate initiatives. Prop 4 funds safe drinking water, wildfire prevention, and protection of communities and natural lands from climate risks. We've got two $10 billion bonds on the ballot this year. Prop 2 for schools and Prop 4 for climate. At first glance, it might be easy to dismiss both and vote no based on the sheer size of the bonds. But as always, I encourage you to consider all the pros and cons carefully before deciding how to vote. For the full picture of our existing debt obligations, please check out the video I released last week called Bond Financing in California. After passing Prop 1 in March, which authorized $6.4 billion in bonds for housing and mental health, California has roughly $80 billion in outstanding debt and $35 billion in unsold bonds. We pay around $8 billion per year in interest, or around 3% of general fund expenditures. The Legislative Analyst's Office says California's debt obligations have been decreasing in recent years. Should we add another $10 billion to that total? Let's take a look at what we'd get for the money. Prop 4 includes $3.8 billion for drought, flood, and water supply, $1.5 billion for forest health and wildfire prevention, $1.2 billion for sea level rise in coastal areas, another $1.2 billion for land conservation and habitat restoration, $850 million for energy infrastructure, $700 million for local parks, $450 million for extreme heat, and $300 million for farms and agriculture. Prop 4 requires regular public reporting of bond expenditures. If this all sounds familiar, that's because this isn't the first time California has issued bonds to fight climate change. In 2014, voters approved Prop 1, which authorized around $7 billion for water infrastructure projects. While much of the $7 billion has been spent as planned, the $2.7 billion set aside for water storage, dam, and reservoir projects has not. The California Water Commission is in the process of awarding contracts, but these large and complex infrastructure projects take time. Opponents of Prop 4 say that voters deserve to see progress on previous projects before authorizing new debt. If you want to see progress on previous water bond projects before investing in new ones, you may want to vote no on Prop 4. In 2018, there were two bond measures on the ballot to fund water infrastructure and the environment. Prop 3 was rejected, but Prop 68 was approved, raising $4 billion. That was 6 years ago, and that money has been spent on parks, conservation, and waterway improvements. And yet, there are communities living in California that currently do not have access to clean water. Failing water systems are clustered in the Central Valley and low-income communities. If you need proof that we should invest in climate change, just look at your fire insurance bill. If you can get fire insurance at all, investing in wildfire prevention could save lives, homes, and money. Prop 4 mandates that 40% of the bond money be used for activities that directly benefit low-income communities and those with higher vulnerability to climate change. If you think it's necessary to invest in clean water for all and protect Californians from the effects of climate change, you'll want to vote yes on Prop 4. Opponents of Prop 4 argue that we could afford to pay for these projects out of pocket if California managed its budget more effectively. According to the Legislative Analyst's Office, California has spent about $13 billion per year on natural resources and climate over the past 10 years. Only 15% of that came from bonds. In 2022, the legislature approved a spending package called the California Climate Commitment, which dedicated around $54 billion to climate activities. But this year, that amount was scaled back to $44.5 billion due to budget shortfalls. But while we're in a budget shortfall now, 2 years ago, we had a $100 billion budget surplus. Opponents want to know why more of that money wasn't used to fund climate projects or pay down our existing debt. If you think Prop 4 wouldn't be necessary if California had managed its budget more effectively, you may want to vote no. But if you feel that California is spending a reasonable amount of budget resources on climate, but don't think it's enough, you may want to vote yes on Prop 4. Whenever there's a drought, severe heat wave, or major fire, California spends billions to help those affected. According to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, for every $1 we spend in climate mitigation, we save $6 on disaster relief. If you agree that spending $10 billion now could save us $60 billion later, you may want to vote yes on Prop 4. The Legislative Analyst's Office says that the cost to repay Prop 4 would be $400 million per year for the next 40 years. That adds less than half of 1% to the state's total general fund budget, and it totals $16 billion in payback on a $10 billion bond. That's a lot of interest to pay, and there's just no way around the fact that this is a large amount of debt to take on. If you think $10 billion is just too much, especially after a year with a $47 billion budget shortfall, you'll want to vote no on Prop 4. When we follow the money, we find that around $200,000 has been raised in support of Prop 4, mainly coming from conservation and land trust organizations. No money has been raised in opposition. This is not a big money campaign. If we pass Prop 4, we We could invest in clean water for all and help Californians prepare for the effects of climate change. And we could be saving ourselves money by preventing damage from some of the most severe effects of climate change. But $10 billion is a lot of money to borrow. I'm Kathy Jameson, the Proposition Lady, and I appreciate you being here with me today. See you soon, California voters. Bye now!